Thank you, Alan. I am happy to be here. I'm scared to death. So I'm just going to put a little prayer out there that my higher power will help me to say what he would have me say, and that whoever's here that needs to hear my message will hear it as I intend it and not in my fumbly human way of maybe speaking. So I'm going to talk about how kind of the where it what, how it started, what happened, and where it is now, in a little bit in that order. And I like it when speakers share pictures because it helps me like relate and know that they relate to me. So I'm just going to start out with a couple of pictures and then I won't show any more after that. Except I told you I could, and now I hope I can. Okay, here we go. So I have to do the share, right? I'm sorry, guys. I should have made sure. Okay, here we go. Share. Okay, can you guys see the pictures? Okay, so I grew up a normal body weight. I was actually probably on the thinner side my whole life. And then in about my mid 20s, I'll tell you more about later how it happened, but that's when I started putting on weight. And in my 30s and 40s, I had gained quite a bit of weight off and on. So this is just the picture that I have. I was at times bigger than the one that says 2000, but that was me in 2000. And then in 2021, that's when I found OA. So this was probably right before I came into OA, or, right around the time of coming into OA. And I have the 2012 picture because my disease shape shifted. And at times I was very underweight and very unhealthy and fainting, and it wasn't a good time either. And then this is a picture of me in 2023. And then I also wanted to share a picture of me today so you can see what I look like literally today. That was me and my son. We went to the temple. So how do I do stop sharing? Okay, so I just wanted you to see, like, if you're struggling with being overweight or being underweight or bulimia or overexercising, purging, laxatives, any of that, I've been every single one of those places. So now I'll just take a deep breath and start my story. I once heard someone say that your share might be the key that unlocks someone else's prison cell. And that's why when I heard that, I promised my higher power that if I ever was asked to speak, I would speak, because it's in speaker meetings where I've gained the most knowledge and relating to my disease. And so if anything I share can help somebody else identify or find something that will help them, that's what we're here to do with our step work, right? And there's been several times mine just didn't have one key. It wasn't like I got the key and I ran out and I'm free. Like, I got the key and I ran out, and then I realized I'm in a hallway in the basement and I didn't get out. I just got out of that prison cell. And then there's been different ones throughout the past few years. I first heard about OA in 2021. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I grew up. I was physically abused by my dad, who likely also suffered from our disease. His mom and his siblings were all over 350 pounds, which is 25 stone, and we're all pretty short. So it was, none of them were healthy. They had heart problems and died young, all of them. I left home for the first time when I was 15. I was raped by someone I trusted when I was 16. I had a mom that put a very huge emphasis on weight loss and her looks. And I'm not blaming any one of those things, but all of them together were kind of like a storm waiting to happen. I married at 19, and we have 5 children, and we're still married. We've been married for almost 40 years. And one of my children has Down syndrome, and I have a daughter with autism, and my husband suffers from mental illness. So our oldest 3 are married with children. So now we also have added 3 spouses and 9 grandchildren to our family. My relationships with my daughter-in-laws have been very complicated at times. I had a lot of stress surrounding the way that they were partnering with my sons or raising my grandchildren and the way they treated my sons at times. And I always worried, like, are their marriages happy? It was really hard to go from meeting all of my children's needs all these years and then just stopping when they got married. That was a very hard thing for me to let go. And I think it was compounded by the fact that I still have two adult children at home. And so I still have to be a caretaker in ways, but then I'm not supposed to be a caretaker for these other ones. And so that was something that I was really struggling with as well. In my life, I've always felt joy and love. I've always been grateful for the blessings I have, but I didn't know how to handle hard times when they came. Instead of speaking or trying to change things, I shoved food down my throat to keep myself quiet, compliant, and what I like to call Thanksgiving happy. If I ate enough and was full enough, nothing really bothered me. I could laugh and it was just like, oh, I'll be fine. And I felt calm. But what I didn't know was it wasn't a real sense of calm. It was a false sense of calm and security. And when things would be like a tornado going on, I'd say, what else can I do for you? And I meant it. I wanted to be helpful. I wanted to people please. And I felt like I had to do that. I think now I can see I felt like I had to do that to be loved. As time went on, I put on over 130 pounds over in my 20s and 30s. That's 9 to 10 stone. It felt like it happened overnight, but it was over a few years. I dieted and worked hard to get the weight off, and I would get it back down to a healthy body weight, and then a big crisis would come, and the next thing I knew, I was right back up. And I did that a couple of times before I ended up finding a way. Finally, I dug in with every ounce of power that I had. I used every tool that I knew at the time. I used purging, laxatives, overexercising, excessive weighing, charting. I not only lost the weight I wanted, but I lost even more. And that's when my disease started shape-shifting. And then I didn't want to eat. And then sometimes I couldn't eat. And I'm like, this is amazing. I loved it. That's how sick I was. And I had people saying, they went from saying, you're looking great to saying, like, are you okay? I'm worried about you. And I thought they were crazy because I'm like, this is the best I've ever looked in my life. So I kept the weight off for a little while. And then my father passed away. And that was very complicated for me because we did not have a good relationship, but I was his caregiver the last couple years of his life. And so there was a lot of complicated feelings attached to that. And so next thing I knew, I wasn't in program then. Next thing I knew, I had put on almost all the weight again. And this time it was very quickly. It was in just a few months, so probably like 6 to 8 months. And that's when I knew something's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with me, but something's wrong. So that's how things were. That's how it used to be. So in 2020, the end of 2020, we all know what that meant. We were like locked in our houses or whatever. I was on Facebook and a friend had shared on Facebook, oh my gosh, I've lost 100 pounds. I've kept it off for 4 years. It's amazing. If you have any questions, let me know. And I thought it was going to be one of those like pills or a diet plan or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not going to reach out to her. I knew I didn't want to do that. But then something kept kind of nudging me, just ask her. So I reached out to her and she said, oh, I'm a member of Overeaters Anonymous. And she said, you should try a meeting. It's been amazing. It's changed my life. And she goes, I'm happier than I've ever been. And she said all these things. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, first of all, I was like, there's a thing called Overeaters Anonymous. Like, I'd never even heard of it. And then I thought, well, I've done it before. I'll just do it myself. I don't want to like go tell people. I'll just do it myself. So I decided I'm going to just diet. I've done it before. I'll do it again. And I started trying, and next thing I knew, I had gained more weight. Like couldn't lose anything. So I was at my very bottom. I had no power, no willpower, no nothing left. So I called her back and I said, okay, tell me how to do this. So she gave me a link to a meeting and told me how to go on OA.org. And I went on there, and on my very first meeting, they read Welcome Home and they read Our Invitation to You. And I just cried like a baby. I didn't know that I had a disease. I didn't know that there were other people like me. I didn't know there were a lot of people like me. And I had just felt so alone and so weak and so awful about myself. And I thought, I'm just going to come in. I can tell they've got something I want. I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna lose the weight. This is gonna be amazing. I probably don't need to stay. I mean, I'm doing pretty good. My life really isn't unmanageable. I'm like trying to kind of still, you know, rationalize a little bit. But I got a sponsor right away, and I dove in. She helped me to work out a food plan. We went through the steps, and then her health took a turn, and she had to take a break. I wasn't quite through them, so I immediately found another person and finished working my steps. And it was amazing how each time that I've like hit a wall or a plateau or like felt like I wasn't moving forward for very long, God has put the right people in my life. And they were everyone I've ever had mentor me or sponsor me or anything has been amazing. And I know they've been placed in my life by my higher power. I okay. I could already see God working in my heart and my mind. And I have found out since my daughter was diagnosed with autism that I'm also on the spectrum. And so that has explained a lot about my life and the way that I process things. And one way that I learn really well is from images that my higher power puts in my mind. So he put an image in my mind about cleaning out a home and what that takes. I wanted to like put on some wallpaper and repaint and I'd be great. Like I'd be happy. That's what I wanted. But he was like, nope, we need to take off the baseboards and put on new ones. We need to check the outlets and go down into the basement. And we got down there and I had water damage and rats had chewed my wiring and like in my home. And I'm like, this is going to be a lot more work than I thought I signed up for. But every step of the way, I've had fellows to walk with me. I've had sponsor to walk with me. I've had my higher power to walk with me. I've had people's shares that I've heard on meetings, whether it's they were a speaker or whether they just shared in a meeting, that have like carried my heart through the hard work of this, because you all know it's work. And the image of the home and this different work has really helped me, because on the outside I could say like, oh, I have twinkling lights hanging on my patio and my driveway is always swept and my sidewalk is swept. But behind all that was where all this damage was, and I didn't want anybody to see it. But now I'm in there pulling up things and working, and I've got some of you guys helping me work through things and helping me throw out bins, and like that image has helped me all through the past 6 years, 5-6 years. He also helped me early on with the image of a fancy restaurant and my waiter coming up to me like with a towel draped over their hand and like showing me the specials of the day, what would be the best thing, what they'd recommend for me to eat. And that's my higher power. And that image of knowing that I can trust this expert that knows every restaurant and every menu and everything, can say, this is what's the best for your food plan. And when I choose to pause and let that happen, it's always been a really good outcome. And it's helped me like when I've had to like I was only about maybe a couple years in recovery and my cousin took me to South Africa. I live in Arizona in the United States. Like I live in a cowboy town. And I got to go to another continent, and I'm like, what am I going to eat? How am I going to know what to do? Like, I can't look ahead. I don't know what's going to be there. And it's been amazing because that image got me through anywhere I've traveled, in the States, out of the country. It's been very incredible. Another thing that helped me was a saying, am I nourishing my body or am I feeding my disease? Because anything I put in my mouth is doing one or the other. It's usually not doing both. Because even if I'm eating healthy food, if I'm eating beyond what my body needs, I'm feeding my disease. There's something I'm trying to shut up. There's something I'm trying to quiet or calm or something. So I also have to remember that. As I went along in recovery, my relationship with God became more intimate. I learned that not only could I ask him for help for little things, but that it pleased him when I do. It pleases him. He wants to love me and care for me. He cherishes me. And what a concept. I mean, I didn't grow up feeling cherished, so this was a new concept for me. I knew God loved me, but I didn't necessarily feel cherished by my in my home life. And I also want to go back and say, I grew up going to church and I knew I had a higher power and I called him God and I knew he loved me. And I didn't know it then, but I didn't always know how to access him in a way that could help me in my deepest, darkest moments. There were times I felt very loved and protected. And by looking back, I turned to him for things in the big things. And I was blessed whenever I did. But and I would turn to him like for friends with cancer or tsunami victims or different things, but I didn't really want to bother him about what I should eat on Tuesday. Like that felt like wasting this great power. And I'm very, very glad to say that I've gotten past that because that was a stumbling block for me for a while. There were times I prayed for help with my weight, but it was usually about how to get skinny. It wasn't about my problems. It was like, help me be skinny. So um, I look back and I see that I was kind of making a laundry list for God, but it was the best that I knew how at the time. So I don't fault myself for that. Um, okay. Sorry, guys. So when I started to eat what God wanted me to eat, and I started to get closer to weighing what God wanted me to weigh, and it didn't happen quickly. The other times I'd lost 100 pounds, it happened relatively quickly because I was restricting and not doing it in a healthy way. But this time, it came off relatively slowly. It probably took between 18 months and 2 years for me to get the weight off, but it felt so much more gentle on my body. It felt kind to my body. And I didn't have to change anything I was doing. It wasn't like I was on a diet and then I wasn't on a diet. I just was eating this way and I just kept eating this way and it just happened. So that was a beautiful, gentle, loving thing that I felt I got from program. Um, let's see, a couple of years in, I began working with another sponsor who helped me and nurtured with me with exactly what I needed at the time. And that was another God thing because my second sponsor was like, well, you're abstinent now and you're cured. You just go forward, you're great, do this. And that did work for a while. But then I kind of realized kind of sponsoring myself. Like I'm making these decisions and I don't have someone to bounce it off of. And this woman came into my life at exactly the right time. And she was so loving and nurturing to me. I also have a group of women in recovery who have become some of my best friends. We have a group chat of people spanning the globe. So we can turn any time to that chat and someone's always awake because there's all different time zones. And um, I can book in to visit with a friend or going out to eat with somebody, or if I'm feeling triggered, we can turn to each other on there. And that's been one of my biggest blessings as well. At an OA retreat, I once heard someone speak about doing a rapid step 10. These little check-ins when my peace was gone helped me to learn about my part in things and process my feelings, even when I hadn't even played a part in the thing. At one point, my daughter, she got in I won't go into the details, but I wasn't even there. And her boyfriend's family said some really mean things to her and she came home crying. And I thought, well, I don't have any part in it, but can I still do a rapid step 10 on it? And I'm like, well, I'm going to try it. And I put it down and I did it. It was an app and I did process my feelings on there. And when I was done, it popped up. It pops up the opposite of the character traits. And it popped up healthy detachment, healthy detachment, healthy detachment 3 different times for stuff that I had put of how I was feeling. And at the time, I hadn't even heard the term healthy detachment. So that brought me on another journey where I started researching and looking up that and thinking about my childhood and learning about detaching and how to do it in a healthy way. And that was like, I wonder if I need to do that about my daughter-in-laws. And I went on this journey of like, God took me on this journey of what is it of my business of how they live their life? Like, how they choose to raise their children, my sons and their wives. It's none of my business. And I didn't want my mother-in-law to care or know what I was doing. Why should they want me to care? Like that's been another really big blessing of Overeaters Anonymous for me.
You have
Um,
10 minutes left.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
You have 10 minutes left.
Okay, thank you so much. At another OA retreat, we were saying the Serenity Prayer, and instead of "Thy will, not mine, be done" at the end, the lady behind me said, "May Thy will and mine be one." And I was like, what did she just say that? That may thy will and mine be one. That was such a little shift, but it really helped me to learn about aligning my will with that of my higher power. Completely turning everything over to God felt scary for me because of the way that my dad was so overbearing with me and controlling. And so to think of just aligning my will with a loving higher power changed that perception for me and allowed me to like want to do more, want to align that even more. I love how God reaches for me wherever I am, whether I'm doing well or doing poorly. He reaches for me. He's in relentless pursuit of me. This past year, my husband had a hip replacement. He had a heart attack. He's been unable to work for over a year and a half. I've been our sole supporter, and my earning power is drastically less than his. These months have been some of the hardest in a long time in my life, yet I now have the tools to handle them with God's help. I often just do the next right thing. I pray more specifically, and I know that God can answer my little prayers and my big ones. Fear of financial insecurity has left me. I That is amazing because where we are right now is a very scary thing, but I just know that I'm not going to go hungry and I'll have a place to live. We may not live here. We may have to move somewhere else, but I'll still be okay. And that is amazing, having that knowledge and that just that good feeling in my heart. I know that my needs will be met one day at a time and the promises have come true. I also have the same husband, I have the same family, I have the same life, same daughter-in-laws, same kids, all those things that used to have me running to the fridge and eating and numbing and hiding food and all the behaviors. They're all still in my life and nothing has changed except for me. And so that tells me a lot. And I'm even in a good enough place to be like, wow, if I'm the one that changed and things are so much better, then that means I was part of the problem all along and I hadn't even known that. I didn't have the eyes to see that. Um, but here I am in this beautiful life where I'm the only thing that's changed. And that tells me a lot about what needed to happen. And I'm okay with that. I know God was working with what he had at the time and that things will keep getting better. And I know that he will never give up on me. Um, a few months ago, my sponsor was having some problems with her abstinence and was asking me if, we kind of had a talk about if that was going to still be a good match because she was worried. And I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. I did not want to let her go. Um, but as time went on, it became apparent that I was needing someone more solid in program. And so we decided that it would be okay if I looked for something else. And I was in a meeting and heard a speaker, just like I said, the key that unlocks the prison cell. And I didn't even know I had another cell left to unlock, but I did. And I talked to that person and asked them to help me out and sponsor me. And they've taken my recovery to another level. Like God was like, okay, you're ready for the next level. And luckily, I still have all of the three sponsors I'd had. I'm still keep in touch with them. They're still in my life. And I they're part of my God squad. I've been blessed all along the way and the new freedom and new happiness that I feel, I just can't believe that I was able to find it in a way. I would have never said I'm a grateful recovering compulsive eater, but guess what? I'm grateful that I have this disease. I'm grateful that it brought me to these rooms and to you guys. And I'm grateful for everything I've learned. And I do know a new freedom and a new happiness. And with that, I will pass. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim, for a wonderful, honest, uh, taking us on a journey through your steps and your recovery. So thank you so much. Beautiful. Okay, so as I've just posted, we'll now open the Q&A segment, which will also be recorded. So if you do have a question, I'll ask you to use the chat function to send them to me, and I will get to ask them on your behalf. Might start off with one. I'd love to hear you share more about for people that might not perhaps know about it. Can you talk more about the Rapid Step 10 process and how people find that?
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if that was okay because some meetings don't let you do that. But okay, it's rapidstep10.com. And it's an AA tool, but it's a recovery tool from the steps. And that was so helpful for me. I probably used that for about probably 4 years. And then more recently, I've heard about a more in-depth step 10 group. And I do that. And now I'm kind of ready for that because I was using the rapid one and getting a lot from that one. And so like I said, when as I'm ready, God introduces something new. So I wouldn't have been ready for this long one before, but the rapid one, just the thing I loved about it is it gave me not just what my character defects were, that I kind of knew, but to show me the opposite was very beneficial for me because how would I have known that, you know, this, and this, that the opposite is healthy detachment when I didn't even know the words healthy detachment. So it's helpful to dig in to that. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you for that answer. Okay, the next question. Thank you so much for your share. Can you talk about how you work with the 11th step?
Yes, I grew up in church, and so I still go to that church. And so I have a pretty rigorous step 11. I one of my sponsors shared with me a nighttime meditation app, and I use that every night. And it's like a prayer and it goes through, it's actually very, very good recovery based. It goes through like thinking about your day and thinking where you weren't honest or where you weren't the best version of yourself and how, giving that to your higher power now and, things like that. I do that every night when I go to bed. I pray anytime I wake up in the middle of the night, which I'm in menopause. And so I wake up in the night a lot. So I pray a lot in the middle of the night for my friends, my family, people that that I know need extra prayers. And that just keeps me really connected and really service minded. Um, I serve in my church. I love giving and serving. I serve in meetings. When I go, like to be a timer or be the newcomer greeter or things like that. So that I'm being God's hands on the earth, kind of, so to speak. And that makes me feel closer to him because I know I'm doing what he would do if he was here. I go to church every Sunday. I go, and that the music, spiritual music, really helps me feel connected to my higher power. And that connection, I think, even though I've always done some of those things, I was always, like I said, like I didn't access my higher power like I wish I had. Like there was always that, like, he's God, I can't bother him in that way. But now I'm like, hey, I'm really feeling frustrated, like I can, like a best friend almost. And so those other practices in my step 11 just keep me really close, knowing that I can rely on him. So thank you. I hope that answered your question.
Wonderful. Thank you for that response. I'm going to combine a couple because they kind of overlap. One person asks about how you define your abstinence. Another person asks, how do I understand what food behaviors are issues?
Oh,
So if
nice.
you could discuss the two together, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. So in the beginning, I just needed somewhere to start because I was just like, let's start. And so my sponsor had me write out everything I'd ever binged on. And it's funny because it seems like there'd be this huge list, but now that I know about my autism, Now I know why it's small, but it's because I only eat the same foods all the time. So it still would work if you binged on a million things or if you binged on 25 things, but it was always the same go-tos that I would binge on. So I defined it by these are the things that I use to numb myself. So basically, it's any sweets or sugar. Um, and that's how I started out. I just took all sweets off the table. And my sponsor had me do like 3 meals a day with nothing in between. So we didn't even really like do weighing or measuring or anything. And I lost weight doing that. Um, and I felt good doing that. Then I started having like stomach issues and things. And so my doctor tested me and I found out I'm gluten intolerant. I'm allergic to eggs. Like there's some things that my body literally was having allergic reactions to, not just my mind or my abnormal reactions. And so those things went on the red list too. And then she called it a red, yellow, and green list. So those were red. Yellow was things I had to measure. So I had pasta and bread on my yellow list until I found out I was gluten intolerant, and then it all went off anyway. So that's how we defined my abstinence in the beginning. I did end up meeting with a nutritionist. And because I had abused laxatives for so long, this is different. It's not really the question, but can I tell this? Okay. So since I'd abused laxatives for so long, we had to wean me like to stool softeners for a while and then to foods that would help me with my bowels. And so it was a process to get me where I could have, bye, sweetie, love you. Get me to where I would have regular bowel movements without laxatives because of all the years I damaged my stomach and my intestines. So behaviors, that puts me into behaviors. So behaviors is I can't use any artificial means of anything. Like, so I can't use laxative. I don't use stool softeners anymore. Once we got me weaned off those, it took like a year to get me off those. Once we got me off those, I will not use those anymore either. So, and um hiding food is a red light behavior for me. We also put those in red, yellow, and green. So hiding food's red light, lying about food is red light because I would often, I'm going to run to the store and then drive through a drive-through and get some food and sit in the parking lot and eat it and then come home like with the groceries and act like nothing and then eat dinner, you know. And so I can't hide food. I can't lie about food. Um, which is it's kind of interesting because I do have to hide food, but it's hidden in my fridge, in my drawer, just so my son with Down syndrome doesn't eat it. So that's different. It's not hiding it with ill intentions. It's hiding it to protect my food so that I can stay abstinent by eating my safe foods. And that also brings me into another thing. I live in a family of 4, and nobody else is on my program. So I have a whole big refrigerator full of foods that are red light and yellow light foods for me. And I have one drawer, one of the like crisper drawers that's just mine. And I keep my foods in there. And I can eat some of the stuff. Like I could have milk on something or, whatever. But this is my drawer that's the stuff that I have to have. And so um it's been pretty neat because like I said, with the imagining my higher power pointing at something for me to eat on a menu or something, when I open the fridge, all this is blurry and I just go to my drawer and that's what I eat things out of. And then the same thing with our cupboard, I have a bin that has my stuff in it that doesn't need to be refrigerated. And I try to keep my family out of that. I mean, they can say, hey, can I have one of your turkey patties? But if they take my last turkey patty and then I go to eat it the next morning at 5 a.m. and it's not there, that's my food plan, So I have to kind of protect my food plan. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, thank you for the full holistic answer. Hopefully that helps that person answer the question. Okay, next question. How do you create a God squad? How many people do you have on it, etc. And there was a second part of the question. How do you have fun in recovery?
How do I what? The
Have
last.
fun in recovery.
Okay, awesome. So the God Squad being created was really neat. I went to a retreat and it actually was a few of my sponsees. And that's another thing. I started sponsoring my sponsor had me start sponsoring right away. Like as soon as I finished my 12th step, she's like, all right, you need to go sponsor like this week, start putting your name out there. And now I'd only been in program maybe, I don't remember, just, a few months, however long it took me to do my steps. And I was scared to death, but I started putting my name out there at meetings when they'd say, if you're available, raise your hand. And I got a few sponsees right away. And we all ended up going to this retreat in another state that only one of us lived in. And another one came from England, one came from New York, one came, I came from Arizona, and we ended up going to this retreat and meeting in person for the first time. And it was amazing. And so it kind of started out, my God Squad kind of started out like my sponsees and myself. And then little by little, we invited a few more people in to join. But over the years, like people have been like, oh, can I come in and join? And then they come in and then they just watch. And so there's been times where we've had to say, okay, if you're just sitting here lurking and we're bearing our souls and you're not also sharing, then do you really want to be here, or do you want to be part of it? So it's kind of small because of that. I know that sounds weird, but that's how we kind of developed it. But I love outreach, and I do outreach. I have God Squad people that aren't in that exact group chat, but that I reach out to all the time. And I've met them by being the newcomer greeter, and they come in and they'll ask me questions, and then we start texting all the time. Like the more I put myself out there, the more I have people reach out to me, and then that helps me reach back out to other people, if that makes sense. And I have fun in program because I need to get out and have fun. I am home with someone with mental illness, someone with autism, and someone with Down syndrome every single day of my life. And I love them. They're my family. But it's hard. I'm a caretaker 24/7. And so luckily I've learned to shut off the other kids that are out. I've really learned to stop caretaking them, and that's another miracle of program. But because of that, I have to have fun. So we laugh, we joke, we like send each other funny things. We reach out and share like happy wins in our life that aren't weight related or whatever. And going to retreats and going and meeting people in person is my favorite thing. I haven't got to meet a lot of people in person, but the ones I have, they have just become so important to me. And we laugh and have fun and talk. And so I think having fun in program is just finding your people. Like if someone says something you relate to, like try to reach out to them, because they're going to be kind of on your wavelength, so to speak, I think.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that response. Okay, it's a good few questions left. We'll try and do what we can. So next person asks, did you struggle or do you struggle with body image? As you mentioned, your weight came off slower at the end. If so, how did you work through that?
I do. I struggle with body image, hardly, not even close to what I used to, but I do. And I'll tell you what's helped me the most. I started, when I do my step 10s, even my rapid step 10s, and then now my more in-depth ones, when it says, do you own amends? I'd be like, no, I didn't say anything to anybody. I don't owe them an amends. But a lot of times I find I owed myself an amends. If it's not something I did to someone else, but I'm upset about something, like when I was upset about my daughter's boyfriend's family treating her that way, it's like I owe myself an amends because it's bringing up like old trauma of the way that my dad treated me or whatever. And so I'm going to do a living amends by learning how to say that bothered me, or I didn't like how that felt. And so, um, the amends process has really helped me. So now I forgot your original question, but I was going somewhere with it. Tell me the question one more time.
Sorry, I was trying to read through the next question. I think it was struggling with body image.
Yes. So thank you. I knew I had a point. And so in that, there's times I'd like look in a mirror and be like, oh my gosh, to my knees, like my knees look disgusting because I've gained weight and lost it so many times. They're like saggy and wrinkly. And I'm like, that looks horrible. I'm never wearing this skirt again, And then all of a sudden I felt like a slap across my face, like, oh my gosh, I'm body shaming my knees, and I'm the one that made them like that. I'm victim shaming. It's like someone punching you in the face and saying, your black eye looks disgusting. And I'm doing that to myself. So I made a rule for myself. Anytime I cut down my body, I have to say like 5 nice things about it, about that part of my body. So I'm going to start crying. I'll warn you right now. But that day at church, when I looked in the mirror and saw my knees and said how awful they were, right away I texted my sponsor and I'm like, okay, I just did, I sent her the step 10 about my knees and I'm like, okay, I'm going to send you things I like. And I'm like, I can kneel down to pray. I can get on the ground and play with my grandchildren. I can bend down and get back up and I don't hurt anymore. I can, like, I don't remember all the things I came up with, but I came up with 5 and it took me a little while. But after doing that over and over about things that I thought I didn't like, it's neutralized my parts of my body that I don't like. Like, and there I go saying don't like, but that I don't love, that I'm like, ugh, I wish I didn't have the saggy skin on my stomach, or I wish my butt wasn't wrinkly, or whatever. Like if I say that, I'm like, you know what? But man, I can squat now. I have a 9-year-old daughter granddaughter with severe disabilities, and she's in a wheelchair. And I can pick her up out of the wheelchair and squat, and I can do things, man. My body's strong. And I can do these things, even if I look at it and I'm like, well, I don't look like Jennifer Aniston or whatever, but I am strong and it can do what it's meant to do. And I'm very rarely in pain anymore. That's another thing I didn't tell you guys. I have rheumatoid arthritis and I was walking around in pain every second of every day, excruciating pain. And now that was before program. And once I got off all these red light foods and found out like my inflammatory markers and the foods, the wheat and the eggs and all that, and got rid of all that and the sugar, especially the sugar, my pain is gone. And I'm like, how amazing is that? Like I can do this and I can move. And before I'd be like, So that's how I got over the body image stuff. I sometimes still go, oh, I wish my thigh looked a little different, or whatever, but it's not the same as it used to be. I'm not feeling like shame and agony over it. So that's how I did that.
Thank you for the honest response. Okay, right, next question. Thank you so much for speaking today. Wow. Could you talk more about, you mentioned loving detachment. You mentioned difficulty with your father caring from the end. I don't know if that's something you can share more on.
Yes, absolutely. So I let me take a deep breath. Okay, so as I did my step work and was super honest, and I've gone and done my steps. I've probably done them, besides you're always living in them, right? But going through 1 through 12, I've done it 3 full times. 4 full times in 6 years. And so each time I don't start back and do the stuff I already did. I do what comes up now because new stuff even from my past, new things come up that I'm ready to look at. And I've heard, people say like, oh, it's like an onion, we're peeling off the onion and we're getting more toward the middle or whatever. When you're ready, the next layer. For me, I look at it more like a snake. And when a snake gets a little bit bigger, they have to, like, their skin sheds and they crawl out of it and leave it. And they go on and they're healthy. And then when they grow, their skin sheds again. So I don't mean I'm getting bigger physically, but when my spirit and my soul and things are growing and learning and developing, I need to shed the old version of that. So as I've done that and as I've worked the steps and as I've gotten into my character defects, I've realized, oh my gosh, my dad had character defects. Well, I already knew he did because of how he treated us. But now I'm like, if he was working a program, if he was alive and he was working a program, he would be realizing some of the things that he'd done and the pain he caused his family, and he'd be ready to admit it and apologize. He never would apologize in this life. I talked to him about it. I tried to say, I need this from you. I need you to just admit that you didn't need to hit us and punch us and do these things. And he's like, I was just disciplining you. I did it. He always had a reason for it. And I'd say, but it was so harsh. And we would be crying and begging you to stop and you wouldn't stop. And he's like, well, I just, he wouldn't even listen. So as I think about that and think about if he were alive now and could know, if he was willing to look at everything. And now I believe he does know. I believe wherever he's living, he realizes now how he lived, that he would say he was sorry. And I believe that he would have done better if he knew how to do better, because guess what? I would have done better if I knew how to do better years ago. If I knew how, I would have done better at giving my kids space. I would have done better at this, done better at that. I wouldn't have judged. I wouldn't have gossiped. I wouldn't have done those things. And so I believe he would do the same thing. So healthy detachment has come the more I've worked on me and the more I've realized that nothing is in my control except me. It's helped me to detach from feeling like I should have a say in what someone else is doing, or like I should have a say even in my own family. My husband's mental illness is very, very heavy at times and very hard to deal with. He has times where he's suicidal. He has times where he just feels like he's too much and he wants to make our life better by leaving. And I'm like, don't leave. I mean, there's a lot going on, but I've had to even healthily detach from that. I've had to say, if you, not to him, but if he chooses to take an action that would not have him living here anymore, that I have to understand that he is doing what he thinks he needs to do, and I can't control that. And that has been one of the bigger things I've gotten out of program, is letting that go, because that I've carried for years. That I have, you're watching the person you love more than anything in the world wanting to die, and living with that every day is excruciating. And now I can realize I can go with a friend and go meet her for lunch. I don't have to stay here protecting somebody all the time. They have their own choices, and I would be devastated, but I can't control. That means I couldn't even go to the bathroom. He could do it while I'm in the bathroom, so I'm learning that. And I actually have it. I used to have it pinned. I don't know that I do anymore, but I will actually read you my note on healthy detachment, because there's times I have to read this several times a day. Okay. I haven't had to read it in a while. That's why it's not pinned anymore. It bumps off of WhatsApp if you don't pin it again after 30 days. Healthy detachment. I've learned to accept that my loved one's mental health is literally one day at a time. I've learned to enjoy when he's functioning and detach when he's not. Today is one of the in-between days when I need to manage things differently. He's struggling with coping, and I want to reach out to help. Helping looks like checking up on his emotional state or trying to fix everything and make it better. I can color it prettier than trying to control his anxiety and depression, but longing to feel some level of control is exactly what it is. It brings me back to my days of caretaking and worry. I'm not the one that he needs to help him. Now is a perfect time for me to practice hands off. I can attend to our relationship as I usually do, but not overdo it to satisfy my fear. I can let information come to me or not about his life and not work at trying to make things easier for him. I may need to even step back until I'm on firmer ground with my personal recovery. Watching someone struggle is never easy, but struggling along with them is not the answer for me today. I can find peace in trusting there's a loving God with much greater power than me that can aid him along in his path. My job is to be a loving and compassionate wife and witness to his life story and fully attend to the life that I've been given. And that saves me all the time when I read that and remember that about healthy detachment.
That was wonderful. Thank you for that response. Okay, we've probably got time for this last one. Firstly, a couple of people asked for your numbers. We will open the chat for people to share numbers.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So just, you're doing that. So I think this will looks like
I'm on WhatsApp for people outside the US and then on regular texting for people in the US. Thanks.
yeah, I see you on the vision list as well. Anyway, the last question. Please, could you touch on the sustaining factors or practices that brought you through, their words, slog of the physical part of your recovery? You know, this person is also a 100-pounder, so any kind of encouraging words?
Oh, absolutely. So, I would say the fact that I had to remember, well, when I'd lost the 100 pounds the two other times, I was in such restriction mode that then I would keep losing and I didn't know how to eat to just maintain. I either knew how to binge and gain or lose and not gain. And so something that was really encouraging to me was that I was doing kind of an in the middle thing and that would help me. That would be something I can sustain forever. Like my food plan never has to change unless I need to change it. And I will say there have been times I've needed to change it. In fact, recently I needed to change it because the scale was starting to creep up a little bit. And so when I met with my new sponsor, she gave me some great things to do. She had me meet with my dietitian again, get on an exchange plan so I could very clearly see like how many proteins I needed and how many of this. But the learning to love my body, no matter what it looked like, I mean, has been one of the ways that's given like longevity and being willing to keep pushing through. I don't know if I'm answering the question, but it was kind of a little bit of each thing together that made it and the not having the pain was more important to me than looking skinny. There came a point where it flipped and it wasn't about the wallpaper and the paint anymore. It was about having safe wiring and having the water damage gone in the home, you know, like having a safe place to live in this being my soul's home. This is my soul's home. And so I don't need it to be this on the cover of a magazine to house my soul, but I need it to be a safe, feeling good, feeling healthy, strong, like the more gentle and the more that I could see that that's what I needed. And the more I worked with my higher power on it, that's what's made a big difference for me.
I think that does bring our Q&A session to a close. Firstly, thank you everybody for the wonderful variety of questions that have touched so many topics, and thank you so much, Kym, for just a wonderfully touching share and your kind of holistic responses to the questions. Of being put on the spot is quite hard, but I think you did absolutely fantastically. And the fact that that was being recorded as well, we so appreciate that, and I will continue to touch so many other people as well. And I will post the YouTube link. So if you follow that link, that's to our YouTube channel. Hopefully the recording will be posted within the next couple of hours. Okay, so as I said, the chat is open for you to share your numbers for outreach. A lovely WhatsApp person, Greta, has also posted a link to our WhatsApp group if you'd like to join, this meetings WhatsApp group for fellowship between meetings and reminders for next week's session if you want to join us again. It's been great to have everyone here. Okay, so just think about our newcomers recovery hub. So if you're new or have questions, we do have a newcomers recovery hub where our newcomer greeters, I know Rebecca's here. I didn't see if other person is here. There'll be people more than happy to have an informal chat with you in a breakout room at the end of the session. So if you are new and you'd like to stay behind and be part of that breakout room, if you raise your electronic hand now or before the end of the close of the meeting, we'll get a breakout room set up for you. Okay, mentioned about the WhatsApp. Okay, so we'll close the same meeting we always close a New Freedom Big Book study by reading the 12 promises, known as the Step 9 promises, which obviously Kym has touched on in our share, from the Big Book of AA, beginning at page 83 with a paragraph, if we are painstaking, and ending, if we work for them. And I should have said at the beginning, it's our usual format to ask our guest speaker to read those for us. Just give me a second, they'll be on the screen for you. Just go ahead when they're up there.
If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
And thank you, Kym, for bringing those to life for us today. So thank you all for joining us today. Our meetings do recur on a weekly basis, and we'd love to see as many of you all again on another meeting. So it's the same time on the same link each week, although because this meeting is based in the UK and Europe, obviously we adjust times. But so for US fellows, the time will change in a couple of weeks when we all sync in our clocks again. Okay, so may your higher power bless you and keep you. Till then.